Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What with Dan and Julie. Today we've got Hannah on, who's a photographer. Hi Hannah, how are you?
Hi, yeah, well, thank you. How are you guys?
All good. It's a lovely sunny day actually.
It is. I think it's the last of the sunshine. I think the rest of the week's I've heard it's got snow on Friday, so that should be quite interesting.
I'll take that. Snow in December, don't mind that.
Nice and Christmassy.
So, photography, how did you get into that?
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled into it really. It wasn't so much of an active choice, more of just like a hobby that eventually led to a career. Do you want me to start from the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes sense to go in a chronological order. So I actually never studied photography. I'm completely self-taught. I studied printed textile design. So I did that at Loughborough University, and it's similar kind of field because it's all related to fashion. But I could draw, so I went and did textile design. And then at the end of my degree, I got selected to exhibit my work at a London trade show called New Designers.
Cool.
And then it was a really cool opportunity. Only a select few from our year got chosen, so I was quite flattered. But from there, I got scouted by an American employer, and within about 3 months of graduating, I was on a plane on my way out to New York City to start my job as a textile designer. So it was all a bit of a whirlwind. Yeah, I can't complain because the time that I spent in New York was probably, to this day, the best time of my life. I mean, I was just out of uni, just graduated.
Absolutely, yeah.
Didn't have any overheads, kind of was only worrying about me and what I wanted to do, and I was in New York, so it was pretty much the dream.
Yeah, that is such a cool thing to get into straight out of uni.
It was, yeah. And I'm the kind of person that I just kind of get on and do it. Like, I don't really overthink things or like analyze situations. So I think my parents were definitely like, oh God, she's moving out to like this big city, New York. And I was just like, yeah, bye. So yeah, that was that was an amazing time of my life. But so when I was there, with my first bonus that I actually got, I bought myself a DSLR, and that was pretty much the first official camera that I'd ever owned. I kind of always used to be the girl at the parties at 18th who used to have the camera, so I used to be the one taking the photos. And do you remember the days when Facebook used to only let you upload like 30 images into an album?
Yes.
And so I used to be like Bloody Blah's 18th number 1, Bloody Blah's 18th number 2. I was literally like the booked photographer for the event. So I did always looking back have a passion for it, but I never decided to like go into it as like a learned career path. So when I was in New York working, I had my first DSLR, and I just went out and I just kind of started taking pictures, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, but I really wanted to take pictures, and what better place to take pictures than in New York City. So yeah, it was through trial and error that I kind of learned how to use a camera.
How did you study to use your camera? Did you go to the internet and learn, or was it just you try and error and say, oh, that looks better than that, and I did that?
It was exactly that. It was a bit of both, really. I mean, YouTube is everyone's greatest teacher at the moment, I think. Like, you can go onto YouTube and probably type in anything, and you can learn whatever you need to learn on YouTube. So that's like an amazing gift. But it was more for me just trial and error. Like, I had no idea about ISO until maybe about 2 years into when I was shooting. Like, as a hobby. Well, maybe not 2 years is probably a bit of an exaggeration, but definitely a year. But I had no idea on ISO, I had no idea on f-stops. Like, I literally was clueless. I just really wanted to take photos, and so when I was working, I actually managed to get onto the photography team at work. So I was doing textile design, and then we had like a very, very small photography team. So I used to assist for the photographer there, just because I showed I had a bit of a passion for it. And he then taught me quite a lot about ISO and about f-stops and everything else that comes with like different lenses. And he also lent me like a film camera to use, which was a bit of a learning curve as well. So yeah, it was all pretty much trial and error, I'd say. Most of the images would come out blurry or overexposed or this and that, and I don't actually know what any of those original images are. I probably just deleted them, to be honest with you.
And so how did you go from New York to a fashion photographer?
So when I was out there, I was on a visa. I was on the J1 and then the O1, which I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone listening, but it was an internship visa and then a creative visa. So my time out there was kind of on a clock anyway. So I had 4 years total, and then I had to renew my visa if I wanted to. And I'd kind of always said that I wanted to spend some of my 20s in London. So it was quite an easy decision, even though one of like the biggest decisions to make to come back to London. And when I did come back to London, I had a choice then to decide whether to continue with my printed textiles, or in the back of my head, I always had, well, I could try and be a photographer. So when I was in New York, I had started to get a few like quite small commissioned jobs, but it kind of made me think, like this could be a thing. So when I came back to London, I did just kind of, I don't know if it was because I didn't get a job in printed textiles, or maybe it wasn't really a conscious decision. Like I just kind of went for it, and I managed to get a couple of clients off the back of what I had built as a portfolio. And then kind of just went from there. I mean, it's been a lot of ups and downs. It's been quite a tough ride, but it's definitely been an enjoyable one. So.
Do you think having the experience within the fashion industry and having to have that kind of creative flair and the eye for what looks good has really helped you?
Yeah, definitely. And if I could tell you how I judge an image and what looks good, in my opinion, like I think that would be gold dust. I'd bottle it and I'd try and sell it. But
you're literally the second photographer that said exactly that.
Oh,
if you
really?
could actually nail what it was that you loved, you'd make a ton of money.
Oh my God, exactly. Because I think you just have to go with your gut. I think it's just you have to have a level of confidence in that your opinion maybe is going to be well received by other people. Maybe I don't really know, to be honest with you. I think maybe I've just got an eye for what looks kind of good.
That's an interesting thing. You obviously say that you have your own style of photography, but a lot of the time you're doing work for clients. So how do you balance between the two?
Yeah, it's that's an interesting one. It's a really good question. It's quite a tricky one. So I've built a portfolio. So if someone's employing me for a job, they will see online on my website, on my Instagram, a portfolio that I've built. And I do think that I have a style of photography, a natural style of photography. So I would expect that if a client books me for a job, they would expect to receive that style. If a client's booking me for a job and they want me to do something completely different, I usually try and suss that out on like the first couple of conversations, because if that is the case, then it's just not going to work. What I do comes naturally, so I can't force myself to do like anything other than that. But saying that, I always give a bit of artistic direction from my end when I'm on set behind the camera. Like I'm always instructing the model, but I'm always open for the brand representative who is on set to also take that role as well and give their input and give their direction and stuff. So it's a collaboration between myself and the client, and I always want them to be happy. So at the end of the day, what they want, I do try to do, but I think they do expect a level of involvement from me when it comes to giving direction. And I also do test shoots as well. So I'd always encourage photographers, anyone starting in the industry, to 100% do test shoots. So test shoots are basically free shoots. I don't get paid for it. The model doesn't get paid for it, but we just get to be creative and we get to create content that we want to create. No one's looking over our shoulders. No one's telling us what to do, what not to do. And we can just kind of be a bit of fun with it. And those images do tend to be my favorite shots that I take, but that's probably just because it's coming from me and it's personal. So of course I think they're the best shots.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you obviously said you've got an online portfolio. How did you go about creating that, and are the test shoots something really good for people to get into to start creating their portfolio?
Yeah, definitely test shoots. I was quite lucky when I first came back. I managed to gain myself a client who I actually still shoot with today, like 4 years down the line. So I had a tiny bit of ticking over income when I first started, but it was very minimal, but it kind of just gave me a bit of confidence. On the side of that little bit of income, I did a ton of test shoots. what you'll find out in the industry, it's a lot about talent, obviously, because it's a very visual industry, but it's also, as many industries are, a lot about who you know. So making connections and being like on the tip of everyone's tongue when they're talking about photography is going to get you to the next step. And if that means that you're going to have to do test shoots, I work for free to meet those people and to prove that you can do what you're saying you can do, then it's all worth it. I mean, if I had a choice, like, I would be picking up a camera every day and taking as many photos as I can. But photography isn't always being behind the camera. There's a lot of different elements to it. But I want to shoot, I want to take photos, and it has to be that want that's driving you. So I reckon people will be okay with testing.
So how would you actually describe your job now, or what you've built for yourself? Obviously, we found you via your Instagram, which is great, and there's loads of fantastic, photos of men's fashion, and it is very. The visual aspect of it is very, you almost want to go out and buy what you're seeing, because it's the images are so enticing, I think.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice to hear. That is the aim, for people to go out and want to buy what it is that they're seeing. So I'm glad that that's coming across. I kind of fell into men's fashion because when I was in New York, I actually started taking photos of fashion bloggers, because it was big when blogging was just on the rise, and New York was, I think, maybe before London in taking off with that. So I made friends with loads of fashion bloggers and stuff like that, and one of them in particular ended up becoming my best friend, and he had a male blog, and so I ended up shooting men. And I lived in Brooklyn, and it was at the time when the hipster was kind of making its name. So lots of bearded men, and this guy had a beard and he looked very cool. And so my portfolio it kind of went the direction of menswear because of him, because he was a little bit, I guess you could say he was like my muse when I was out there. I'd just shoot him. And then that's how I got my commissioned work off of that. So yeah, my portfolio is predominantly, I'd say, on Instagram as well as on my website. But I love to curate my feed, and I love to do like colorways in my feed. If you scroll down it, you'll see a subtle color grading throughout, which goes to like blues, greens, blah blah blah. Maybe I take too much pride over that, I'm not sure. But if someone like yourself is looking at it and they like what they see, then that's always great feedback, and it just encourages me to do it a hell of a lot more. So yeah,
obviously being a fashion photographer, everyone probably assumes that you've got the camera in your hand majority of the time, but I assume there's lots of other things that you have to deal with on a day-to-day. What else is there to be a fashion photographer?
Yeah, I mean, no day is ever the same. I think the regularity is the variety, so you can always rely on your day being different. So my typical day is probably, I can't say what my typical day is because it varies so much. For instance, I am shooting later this afternoon, but I didn't know that until last night. So I thought today was going to be a computer-based day after this, but no, it turns out I'm going out on set today, which is really exciting, but you have to be able to adapt and change the pace. But typically I try and do, I think, 50% shooting, 50% behind the computer screen. Behind the computer screen, I do all my own edits, which is quite a good skill that I picked up from when I was a printed textile designer, because I used photography. I used Photoshop quite a lot. So I think I'm quite a dab hand in the old Photoshop department. So I do my own edits. And then also there's a load of prospecting, like reaching out to new clients, getting your face out there. As you've mentioned, Instagram, being present on my website, and loads of like all the computer-based stuff. So I'd say it's about 50-50. And I think I like that ratio, because if I was sat behind a computer screen too much, I'd get very frustrated. But if I'm on set too much, I put so much energy into being on set, I get exhausted. I don't think I'd be able to physically do that every single day. So I'd say it's a 50-50 balance between sat at desk and then out working on set.
So in the world of fashion photography, and specifically what you're doing, you're working with a lot of kind of boutique brands and men's fashion. And is that the typical client for you? You're looking to build a network of boutique people that really want your talent and your how you express yourself?
Yeah, definitely. As I said before, like I have a certain style with photography, so not every client is going to be the right client for me, and it's just finding the people that are. Obviously it's quite frustrating when you don't get jobs, but there's always a reason behind why you haven't got that job. And it's like sometimes it's like finding a needle in a haystack. You just need that needle and then you're good to go. But it takes a lot of effort to get there. So I do focus a lot on like smaller businesses. I work with a lot of individuals as well, influencers, people that are big on Instagram, which I really enjoy. And I'm very much a people person. So I like being with different people, meeting different people, which my job allows me to do all the time. Every single day I'm meeting someone new. So it's definitely something I like. But yeah, I'd say boutique-y kind of brands is probably where I target my work. Yeah.
What would be some personality traits that you see in yourself and other professionals around you think really help in this industry?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, you have to be somewhat confident to have your own business, to take that leap into having your own business just to start with. No matter if you're a photographer or a designer or a chef, you need to have that confidence within yourself. But then maybe it's a different confidence to someone that's like the loudest one at a party. Like sometimes the camera, I'd say, gives me confidence, and a lot of the time it gives me a reason to be somewhere, to give me a reason to talk to someone. And I think maybe a lot of more introverted people would find that if they're into photography. So confidence can come in many forms, but I think you do have to have that element of confidence to be able to make a business out of nothing. I'd say you need to be easy to work with. You need to be a nice person, because I mean, I'm very grateful for the fact that a lot of my clients are repeat clients, which I see as a very big thing, because I pride myself on being quite chilled, quite relaxed, quite easy to work with on set, like no stress, and just I think I'm a nice person. Yeah, so that's obviously a big thing, because no one wants to rebook someone who's not very nice, do they? So
definitely not.
And also with that comes, I think you also need to be very trustworthy. Like I'll always deliver what I said that I will deliver when I said I will deliver it. I'm definitely, I'd like to pride myself on being trustworthy as well within the industry. And sometimes I've worked with people, maybe influencers and stuff, they want everything for nothing, and it just forms a bit of a more of a toxic relationship, and I don't have trust in them. And that's a big thing for me. When I don't trust someone, like I can't really work with them again, because it's obvious why.
is that world of the influencer, I mean, it's constantly growing, and as you know, people build their audiences, even people with 10,000 followers can get involved. Really, is that becoming more and more part of your work as well as working with brands?
Yeah, definitely, because as they get bigger, they kind of get more powerful, and they are almost as powerful as some brands are. I mean, maybe even more. Like when you look at the bigger influencers that have got like 800,000 to 1 million followers, I mean, they can post one thing and that one thing will sell out within like 10 minutes. So their influencers are pretty powerful nowadays, and it only looks like they're getting more and more so. So working with them is just as important to me as working with a brand. Like with influencers, you get a lot of varied work too, which is quite exciting. Like that you could be working with them, with that same influencer, on one brand one week, and then a different brand the next week, creating a completely different story. So that's really exciting. As much as I absolutely adore all the brands that I work with, like a lot of the content that we create is of a similar kind of realm, because obviously they have a brand direction, a brand tone of voice. That makes sense. But with an influencer, I feel like it could be a bit more varied. So yeah, it's really exciting. It's definitely something that I look to expand with, and I always look to meet new people, meet new influencers and stuff. I'm reaching out all the time on social media. And it's something I really love doing.
So is that part of your marketing per se? Because when you run a small business, you have to do everything. So
you do.
Is that your part of your marketing technique, to use your social to reach out to get new clients?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't really ever sat down and thought, right, how am I going to market myself? Which is maybe like something I should do and people should be encouraged to do. There's loads of good marketing techniques that you can do on Facebook and Instagram. The only thing that I've actually delved into is Instagram marketing, because when I get targeted on Instagram, I feel like I buy whatever it is straight away. Like,
Really?
I think they are so clever in the people and the audiences that they target. Maybe I'm just like an advertiser's dream, I don't know. I'm just like a sucker for anything that says buy me now. But I've never actually sat down and really thoroughly thought about my marketing. But Instagram just allows everyone to have such a vivid platform. Like, how many people are on Instagram? God, Lord knows, I don't know. So many people are on Instagram, and so just to post that one picture, you could reach like so many people. And
I think it's like 2 billion people now.
2 billion people.
I think it's something like that.
That's the beauty of it now. And actually, funny story, the other day, so I don't know if you've adopted Reels yet into your own personal Instagram, but Reels...
We've just kind of copied our TikToks over, to be honest.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, sure. See, I never started my platform on TikTok. I still haven't. I'm still a bit scared to, but...
Yeah, I don't know about it. I'm a bit nervous about it, really.
Yeah.
We don't do any like of our videos. We just create kind of little quick videos about what we do, but
which I think is really valuable, and people will follow you for doing that. Because when I thought of TikTok, I thought of dance routines, and I thought, I'm not going to get up and start dancing to a song. But actually, there's a completely different way of using TikTok. You can use it as more of a marketing tool and a behind the scenes tool. So I have started doing reels on my Instagram, and I think I maybe have got about 15 on there at the moment, I think. And one of my reels, I got a notification from Instagram saying, congratulations, your reel has been featured. And I was like,
wow.
What does that mean? And then it had about 700 views, I think, to start with. And within 10 minutes had 7,000. Within 20 minutes, it had 20,000. And it reached 1 million views.
No way.
1 million. I was like, I can't believe. When it got to 250,000, I was like, this is incredible. I can't believe this. But yeah, it reached 1 million views. And that in itself gained me so many viewers to my platform. I think I got about 700 new followers from it, which isn't a huge like conversion rate if you do tally it up. But it's like, it's huge. Like, just for me posting that one reel, or maybe I tagged something that got highlighted. I'm not entirely sure. If I knew the format for it, and I'd sell it, because I think everyone's trying to work that out. I don't know whether it's like super random.
I think Instagram's a really funny platform because the algorithm constantly changes, and
exactly, you also have to be really on it, don't you?
Definitely. And I also think people sometimes when they go to follow an account, if it's like under 10k, for example, they might go, 10k, don't follow it. So once you hit those kind of numbers, I think it gets easier and easier and easier.
Exactly. Yeah, it's I've heard that it's like a snowball effect, isn't it? Like, once you get to a certain amount, it just rolls and rolls and rolls. But I'm still looking to reach that certain amount. So come on. But yeah, so that's kind of my marketing. I mean, that's an amazing, and I didn't pay for that marketing kind of experience. So that's incredible. So being on all these free platforms like Pinterest is something that I've started to look into recently. But there's just so many platforms that you need to be evident on. And then the decision, I guess, is like, do you do it? Do you save Pinterest, for instance? Do I go on Pinterest and do I kind of add a few images? And is that good? Or do I have to put my whole heart into it? Or do I just not have it full stop because I haven't put my whole heart into it? It's a difficult decision to make. And with so many platforms and one coming up like every month, it's like, it's a full-time job in itself, to be honest, is doing all that kind of stuff.
You said you bought your first camera with your first bonus out in New York. Since then, and obviously working as a photographer, how have you sort of improved and developed your equipment? And any advice for somebody maybe getting into it on how to get their equipment?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think my first camera was a Canon Rebel TGI3 or something like that. I wouldn't recommend it. It's pretty plasticky. But in all honesty, I don't necessarily, when you're first starting, think it's the equipment that's going to make the difference. I think it's just getting out there and having the experience. and being out with someone, taking their photo or something, depending on what your photography rhyme and reason is. It's just getting out there and taking photos of it, if it's landscape, birds, whatever it is. But then once you start to like realize the faults in your camera, that's when it's time to update it. So that's kind of what I do. I kind of just like roll with it until I think, oh, actually this could do with some improvements, so I'll update it. So at the moment I'm shooting with a mirrorless camera, which is I would hugely recommend it, because it's actually changed the way that I shoot. I don't shoot looking through the little viewfinder anymore. I shoot looking at the screen on the back of my camera, because the beauty of a mirrorless is that it gives a true representation of what your settings are creating in the viewfinder and in the screen on the back. Okay. Whereas with other like DSLRs, you'll look through the viewfinder and you'll just see what you see through the lens, and you have to change your settings, kind of a bit like a guessing game. I mean, obviously once you get further down the line, you understand the lighting and you know what the settings should be, just instinctively. But to start with, that's really difficult. So mirrorless cameras are really cool. I mean, you can get really expensive ones, but for people that are starting, I would say that mirrorless Canon EOS R is a really good purchase.
That's brand new, isn't it? Pretty much.
It's pretty much brand new. Yeah, that's the one that I've got, and I've got my eye on the R5, which is really expensive. So I'm just kind of biding my time with that one.
Well, I got the Canon M50. I think it's like the small little tiny mirrorless they do. Yeah. That was like pretty reasonable. I think it's about £600 maybe.
Yeah, but, that's good.
That's just I'm not massive into photography, but I just kind of like playing around with it, and that was really good. So you don't have to spend a ton of money, because some of them are £3,000-4,000.
Exactly, and something like that would be a great introductory camera. And then it's only when you've shot enough and you start realizing, oh, actually, I'd quite like to take control of this element of my camera now. That's when you'll kind of think, oh, I'll look to upgrade it. But then you get onto lenses. Does the camera that you've got support like 50mm? Does it support different lenses, or is it just got fixed?
Yeah, so it supports different lenses, but I have to get the adapter to go to like L series and things.
Sure, okay. So then there's lenses, which is like, that changes the ballpark again. I mean, lenses can be super expensive, but you can also get them on a budget as well. When I first started shooting, I had a really, really, really budget 50mm. It must have cost me about $200, I think, and I shot with that for a huge amount of time, like a number of years, and it was absolutely fine. But now I've upgraded to my R series lenses, and the difference in my eye is dramatic, but perhaps the difference of someone just starting wouldn't be as much. So don't be scared of buying something cheap. Like, buy it cheap, use it loads, and just see how you get on with it. It's a way better way around than buying something super expensive and deciding you don't like it, because each photographer will have their own focal length that they kind of suit their style of. A lot of people do wide angle, some people do like really, really tight crops. So you kind of have to work out what your style is, I think, first, before you really, really buy those hugely expensive lenses.
Definitely.
But they are beautiful.
I'm pretty sure I talk about this guy way too much on the podcast, considering we're not a photography podcast, but I follow someone called Peter McKinnon on YouTube, and his photography is immense. And he does loads of lens reviews and things like that. Is that maybe a space you've thought about getting into, like the teaching of photography?
I have, but because I didn't come from a background of learning about photography because I'm self-taught, I've always had a little bit of a fear that I don't know enough about it to be able to teach people. But kind of recently, actually, since I've been a lot more present on my Instagram, because I've done a lot more like face to camera, because COVID means that I can't go out and really network and meet people. I've switched to kind of behind the scenes face to camera kind of style, which is actually really good. It means I can do it from my bedroom. I bought myself a little ring light set up, so I've got a little setup going on. But since then, people have got to know me a bit more, and a lot of people have started asking me questions, and they're questions that I do know the answers to. So questions like that they've kind of built up my confidence a bit more in what I could actually provide, like the value I could provide for people and how I could teach people. Because if I think back to myself when I first started, I would have loved someone like me telling me like how I experienced it and just giving me a bit of advice.
100%.
So it's definitely something I've thought about. Like lenses, I think, and equipment, I'm not so savvy in. I'm more of a visual person than I am like a factual person. Like I kind of just, as I said before, like I kind of just get up and do it. I don't really overthink things. And I think if I was giving reviews on lenses and camera equipment, I would struggle because I think I'd need to do loads and loads of research before, and then I probably still would say the wrong thing. But if it's something more kind of artistic and like the more visual side of photography, and just my personal experience, like it's actually something I've thought about recently, is doing a few YouTube tutorials or something like that, like I don't know what platform would be best for it, to be honest, but perhaps YouTube is where I learn everything from. So it's something that I've thought about.
Definitely.
Sure.
And so what would be some of the biggest positives and opportunities you've had out of this career so far?
Yeah, well, the best thing I think about my job is the people I meet and the places I go and the opportunities I get. Like I always have, I've said a couple of times that if I dress the part and I have a camera in my hand, I feel like I could literally get into anywhere. Like especially during fashion weeks and stuff like that. Like there was one point where I found myself in the middle of the photography pit at the end of the catwalk. Wow. For no reason apart from just being there because I wanted to take photos there. Like I wasn't shooting for anyone. Like I just managed to get in and sneak round and no one had stopped me, and I was there it was quite a cool experience.
That is very cool.
I don't know what design it was for. It was probably someone that no one knows, but I thought it was really cool. I thought I'd been really sneaky. But especially fashion week, like I've used my camera to just walk through doors and things. So the opportunity there is amazing. Like even down to events photography, which is what I used to do pre-COVID, just as like a little bit of a sideline, because I have my menswear stuff, and then I also do events in the evening. Stuff like private members clubs, parties, just like award ceremonies, private parties, and you just stand there sometimes and I've got my camera in my hand and I look around and I'm like, why am I here? Like I wouldn't have been here for any other reason than this camera. So the opportunity that you get from this career path is incredible. And if you're like big into celebrities and stuff like that, there's loads of opportunity to meet loads of people like that, and it's always really exciting. Even if celebrity to you is someone that's on Instagram, like it's still someone that's well known and you're meeting them because you've got this camera in your hand. So it's a cool experience. Travel wise, I've not really been too many places for my job. I'm not a travel photographer, but that is definitely a realm of this career path that you could explore. Like you could go post-COVID, obviously, all over the world, seeing so many different places just because you've got a camera in your hand. So yeah, it's a pretty cool career path if you're looking for variety like that, for sure.
Have you thought about going to that men's fashion festival in Italy they do every year?
Pitti, yeah.
Yes.
I have, and I was actually going to go this year.
No.
Luckily, I didn't book my tickets because obviously it didn't go ahead as planned. But I was telling everyone, like, I'm going to go this year, like, blah, 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 because I do a lot of street style when I am in London for Fashion Week. So I thought this would be ideal, and all the beautiful men that are there, like all their outfits that they're wearing, it would just be fantastic, like the location. But yeah, so unfortunately, they didn't work out for me this time round.
Next year,
another time, when it's back on, for sure, I'll go. I've got a couple of friends that go, so I've got people to go with, so I'll definitely be encouraged to do so.
And on the other side of that, what would be some of the less favourable or negative aspects of this industry?
Yeah, so I guess more the legal contractual side is probably one of the less favourable aspects. As you mentioned earlier, if you're a small business owner, you not only have to do the job, but you have to run the entire business. So that's like chasing invoices, agreeing terms, and whilst like I could go down the route of being represented by someone like an agency, I really like the freedom in my work, and I like choosing when I want to shoot and who I want to shoot with. And if I want to do a test shoot, I can go ahead and do that, and I don't really have to answer to anyone. So I bring that upon myself, I guess you could say. But so stuff like people misusing your images, I've had a couple of experiences with that, which is definitely the unglamorous side of the business. But it's all such a grey area when you're starting. And even now for me, it's a little bit of a grey area of what people can do and can't do. You have to set your terms. Definitely always send out a terms and conditions contract before your photo shoot, no matter who it is. Just get into that habit. And just make sure that you know in your head what is expected, and the client knows what is expected as well, because otherwise when wires cross, it's not a pretty sight. But luckily, like in the grand scheme of things, I haven't had to deal with too much of that, but that's definitely something that is the less favourable side of the business for sure.
So we like to talk a little about what people could expect to earn in this career.
Yeah.
And we did a little bit of research on it, and it obviously it completely varies if you're freelance.
Yes.
But again, it's just up to you how much you earn, how much you work, how good your network is. Definitely. But they reckon you can earn, when you're starting out, maybe 12,000 up to about 18,000. But it's difficult to really put, a finger on the figure.
Yeah. It's like when someone asks you to quote for a job, it's like, how much is it for a photo shoot? So you're like, okay, well, let's start from the beginning. How many images would you like? Where would you like to use them? Are you expecting edits? How quick's your turnaround? There are so many different things, like variable factors that go into costing your service. And then obviously ties into how much you earn at the end of the year. I'd be pretty in line. Like, I think that's pretty spot on for the starting out photography kind of figure. So be prepared for that, because obviously, but I guess it's when you're starting any business as the freelancer, you're always going to have that period of growth. And you need to be prepared to get through that period of growth, whether you've saved money or whether you've got parents that you can live with or friends you can live with. There's always going to be a way around that period of your career. But I'd say, yeah, you're pretty spot on track. But going forward, I mean, if you look at photographers like ranking, how much does he earn? Yeah. He earns like gajillions of pounds. It's like, so, I mean, the scale is enormous. Like, you could be a photographer and not earn very much, but you could be quite happy with that because you like what you do, you enjoy what you do, and you just want to live a simple life. Or you could be on the completely other end of the line where you're ranking and then you earn like £1 million a photo. So it's such a huge spectrum, and I guess like anything, it's how much effort you put into how much you're going to receive from it. So
did you see that a few months ago now? I think it was an Australian photographer, Ian somebody, sold a photograph for about $6.5 million.
Wow, no way.
Yeah.
My gosh, what was it of?
So it's a natural landscape scene. And I think it's in the desert in a canyon somewhere, and it is incredible. But yeah, it's sold for $6.5 million.
Wow. But your thing is, you could look at that like, wow, he's minted, congratulations to him. Or you can look at that like, he might not have earned anything for the last however many years of his career. Like, I don't know who this guy is. Not saying that's why he hasn't earned anything, but I don't know what his history is. So he could have been looking for that shot his whole career. So you need to have faith that like what you're doing is like eventually going to pay out and going to like earn you the living that you want. Because that is an incredible sum of money. And I think if anyone got told that they were going to get that money for one photograph, maybe they would work for nothing for a certain number of years to achieve that. Yeah, but wow, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, certainly.
And to think that like he's not had to pay any models or anything like that, like that's literally all his money. So
you don't know how long he had to spend in the desert for.
This is true. This is very true. You do not know how long he had to spend in the desert for. These are all things that people maybe don't take into consideration when they look at a beautiful photo, though. It's like wildlife photography. Like, it's all about timing. So you have to like when you watch Blue Planet, like how long have they stood in one spot to get that one shot of that insect licking its lips? Like, how long have they done that for? There is so much investment into some images, into videos, into everything that
we spoke with a wildlife photographer a couple of months ago, and he said a lot of it, like nearly 80% of his time, is sitting in a tent waiting for the shot.
Exactly. It takes a certain personality and a certain person to be able to do that. I know that I couldn't do that. I could, as much as I love animals, I don't think I could ever be a wildlife photographer, because you have to be so dedicated to the cause. It's incredible. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
On that sort of theme, is there anything that's in the job or not in the job description that you have to deal with? You never expected to?
I guess, as I mentioned previously, owning a business, like there's lots of things that I maybe didn't expect, like tax, like having to be your own accountant and things like that, which, as I said, I'm much more of a creative visual person, less of a numbers gal. So that definitely came as a bit of a shock to the system.
Are there any skills that you would probably suggest for someone going into this industry that maybe aren't so obvious as a photographer to develop?
Yeah, I think what's really helped me is that I am a people person. I couldn't imagine being a photographer and not being, taking photos of people, and not being a people person. So that's definitely something. I think I pride myself with making people be able to relax in front of the camera, because as, like, for example, Chandler from Friends, you know, some people are like, oh God, when they get in front of the camera and do their awkward smile. So I do pride myself in being able to get people to relax. So I guess that's kind of like a hidden skill, something that you wouldn't maybe expect to do. You also have to deal with a lot of people's, I guess, insecurities about themselves as well. And that's something you have to tread very carefully. And when you're selecting images, taking into account what they think that they're going to look good in. Obviously, if you're a paid job as a model, I don't think you get that say. But if you're working with influencers, that's like a big thing, that they won't want to post something that they don't feel comfortable with. So, there's probably a ton more which I just can't think of right now. It's not all as it's said on the tin, but yeah.
And have you got any good tips on progressing in the industry? Obviously, we've talked about needing to network and build that client base up,
definitely
hone your skills. But what, in your opinion, is the best things?
Yeah, as I said before, I think it's a lot about who you know, and so you really, really have to make the effort to get to know people. Before COVID, I was going to a lot of networking events, which unfortunately aren't happening right now, but there are some virtual ones which I'm actually yet to try. I don't know how successful they'll be. But just going out for coffees with people, messaging people on social media, and just, even if, I think it's always best to meet up with someone not wanting anything, and just saying hi and just becoming like a person that they will remember. And then perhaps the next time maybe you want to shoot with them, or you're asking about their next collection, who's going to shoot that, like they might like look upon it more favorably. But as I said before, the referrals aren't happening. So what I then decided to do is I made a very conscious decision to switch to screen, kind of allowing people to get to know me. So yeah, doing more like face-to-face to camera stuff. I'm not sure if you saw that on my Instagram. Did you see, is that what made you reach out to me? Is that because you saw who I was on my Instagram, kind of my face to camera kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think I saw obviously your feed and I really liked your stuff.
Yeah.
I think we had someone on, Benedict Brown we had on.
Oh, okay.
And I think you popped up as a suggestion.
Oh, cool.
Through that, and then obviously saw your stuff.
Yeah, nice, because since I've done more like face to camera stuff, I feel like people are much more confident in approaching me with questions, and I've actually gained quite a few more clients during this particular lockdown, and the exposure's been really good. Maybe, I don't know if that's something to do with my 1 million viewed reel or not. Did I mention that, by the way?
I think it's definitely something as a business you have to do, because people really relate to somebody when they see them.
Definitely.
And it's something we definitely have to start doing, but I don't know, I find it really awkward.
And I think I'm quite lucky. I think I'm quite lucky in the fact I find it quite easy to be in front of the camera. I think I get that from my dad. Loves to be in front of the camera. But I definitely would encourage anyone to do it. I used to think when I first started my photography, I kind of went down this route where I was a bit like Banksy, you know, I wanted to do my work and I didn't want anyone to know who I was. And maybe that stemmed from the fact that I was a woman in a menswear world. And I kind of had this idea that if they found out I was a woman behind the camera, they'd be less likely to shoot with me. Whether that has any substance to it or not, I have no idea. I don't think it's like hindered my career, but I think that's where that kind of train of thought came to, because I used to be under the name of Photography by Miles. So it was only a few years that I switched to actually my real name. So obviously my real name being Hannah Miles. And so when I made that switch, I kind of really tiptoed into becoming a bit more evident on my social media. But this lockdown has definitely encouraged me to do that. And I've really enjoyed it. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And would you still go into this industry knowing everything you know now?
100%, 1,000,000%. I can't think of myself doing anything other than this, which is such a nice thing to say when I've experienced the full-time job. I've done the 9 till 5, and the thing is with America, you get 10 days holiday as well.
Yeah, it's mad over there, isn't it?
Solid 9 till 5, yeah. And so I'd use those 10 days for Christmas back in England, and that would be it. So I've definitely experienced that, and I love being my own boss, and I love meeting all the people that I end up meeting and going to the places I end up going to. And don't get me wrong, it's not been sunshine and roses the whole time. Like, the career path of starting your own business and being a freelancer is quite tough, and as all freelancers will know, there's up months and there's down months, and you just have to have the confidence that you're going to ride through it, and it will all even out by the end of time. When you come to buying houses, it's quite difficult, which is I'm experiencing at the moment. So think about stuff like that, but I just wouldn't do anything else. I love it. Then when I'm behind the camera, I get into what I call my flow state, which I just don't think about anything else. Like, all I'm thinking about is what's in that image, who's doing what, and it's just all about that process.
That's all you can really ask for in your working life, isn't it?
Exactly.
To just absolutely love what you do.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed chatting to you.
Oh yeah, you guys too. Sorry if I babbled on a bit.
No, it's all right. So, thank you again. And where can people find you online and on social media?
Yeah, so online, my website is hannahmiles.com. There's actually another photographer called Hannah Miles. So a lot of people stumble across a wedding photographer, which is not me. So if you go to hannahmiles.com, that will be my menswear stuff. And then on Instagram, it's Hannah_Miles_photo. Don't forget those underscores. That's it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Hannah.
you guys. No, it's been a pleasure. Lovely to talk to you.